David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another ink review. Today, I have for you a brand new limited edition ink from Papier Plume, which is a bit of a departure for them. This is their very first shimmering ink that they've produced, and it's being released in conjunction with the upcoming Chicago Pen Show. It is called Cloudgate. Thanks go out to the good folks at the New Orleans-based Papier Plume for providing this ink for review. It's been a challenging month or so for Papier Plume. New Orleans was hit very hard by a recent hurricane, and their shop located in the French Quarter was without power for quite some time after the storm, as well as the rest of the area. As I mentioned, this ink is called Cloudgate, which is the name of an iconic sculpture in downtown Chicago. You might know it by its more recognized nickname, the Bean. One of the things I love about Chicago is the city's commitment to public art. Millennium Park is a really cool place to walk around, and there you will find, among many other pieces, the Cloudgate. The design was inspired by liquid mercury, and the sculpture's surface reflects and distorts the city's skyline. The underside is a concave chamber which warps and multiplies reflections, creating a really neat effect. So, what does an ink look like that is inspired by the Cloudgate? To find out, please join me over here at camera 2. So, here we have the bottle for Cloudgate. You can see here that it has the skyline of Chicago. And one of my favorite things about the Papier Plume bottles is the wax seal on the top and just the wax that they put on here. And I really like the drips. This is a nice, big, healthy drip. And sometimes they're a little bit narrow there, so they break off, but this one's nice and healthy. So I'm liking that drip on this particular bottle. And here is a look at the ink. You can see that it's a nice gray, and it has a really nice gold shimmer to it. Let me get that a little bit close, and you can kind of see kind of the bluish gray and then a nice gold shimmer to it. This is what it looks like in comparison to something like the Venta Armada, which is a little bit more of a bluer gray. This is with the J. Herbin's Stormy Gray, which was just another gray that I had that had some shimmer to it, but you can see it's a little bit darker. It's a little bit more similar to something like Troublemaker Petrichor. And then here it is with the Sailor Ink Studio 123. I discovered that I don't have that many gray inks, but so far I'm really liking this Cloudgate. So here is the ink on some 52-gram Tomoe River paper. Over here is a smear, and then over here is a Q-tip application. You can see with the heavier applications that there is a lot of shimmer that is on here. And then for something new, I did a little bit of a drop test with an eyedropper here. And you can see this is a much, much heavier application, and it's very heavy when it comes to the shimmer. But I think it looks kind of nice, and that gold looks really nice in there. Now, as far as bleed through, this was a very, very heavy application, so I'm not surprised that it bled through there. But in regard to the regular application, even though it was fairly heavy, it did really well in regard to bleed through and ghosting. So here we have the Papier Plume Cloudgate. For the header here, I went ahead and used the 3.8 millimeter Pilot Parallel. Oh, you know what? Something I also wanted to mention here is whenever I do my ink samples, in order to write that for a dip pen, I've been using my drill log, and I've showed this before, but this is a really nice pen holder that is made by Jonathan Brooks. So if you ordered a pen log or a drill log and you're looking for a nice holder that was a little bit different than what they provided and a little bit longer, I'd contact Jonathan Brooks, and he'd be able to, I'm not sure what he's charging for these, but he'll be able to make you one in the material of your choice. And it really adds a good feature to this drill log here. And that's what I use in order to write on my ink swatches there. I'm using Rhodia 80-gram paper. I'd say that the ghosting and bleed is low. You can see here even on this thicker application that you really have no bleed through whatsoever. I'd say that it's a very high shading ink. The heavier applications do get much darker. And the sheen is a little bit on the medium side. You can see on the card here that there is a little bit of sheening around the edges. but not a ton. And then I'd say that the shimmer is medium to high. It's not like 100% shimmer, that when I'm making a larger application of it, there's a lot, but you just get a nice taste of it when you're using it in regular applications. Okay, in regard to pens, the first one up here we have is an Opus 88 Coloro demonstrator. And I thought this would be neat because you could kind of see the gold that is in here. You know what, something I wanted to mention as well is I'd say the particles in here are a little bit heavier than I've seen in some other sheening ink. So you could see it kind of gather in the bottom. When you're using a sheening ink, you want to go ahead and shake that up. And shake it up so the particles are spread throughout. But then in not too long of a period of time that you'll see it gather again on the bottom. So I'd say that the particles in here are maybe a little bit heavier in regard to some of the other shimmering inks that I've seen, but I haven't had any issue in regard to these pieces actually clogging up a feed or prohibiting the use of a pen. So here we have the Opus 88 Coloro, and this is an extra fine. Next up, we have a pen from Papier Plume, and that would be the Wetland Cypress. This was a partnership that they had with the Herbert Pen Company, as well as a New Orleans artist. I believe her last name was Couvillon. You could see it right here. But she makes some amazing jewelry, and this clip of the river is very cool. I believe that these are still available on the Papier Plume site. They even come with a rickshaw pen case that matches the pen nicely. It's made from wood, and it's a really nice offering. So I have a review of it on my channel, but I'd strongly recommend checking it out. And this is the Papier Plume Wetland Cypress. And this is a medium. And finally, here we have another pen from Papier Plume, and this one is called the Blues. And this was a partnership. Well, the nib is made from Stylographica, and it is a nice flex nib. So we have Papier Plume and this is the Blues. And this is we'll call it FL for flex. Okay, in regard to a writing sample, I thought I would talk about Chicago a little bit. Chicago's a great city. It's one of my favorite cities to visit, and there's a number of things I enjoy there. And so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to share some of those things. So using the Opus 88, I said that Chicago was a great place to catch a baseball game either on the north side or the south. Well, I haven't seen a game at New Comiskey. I forgot, maybe it's US Bank. I can't exactly remember what they call it now, but where the White Sox play. The last time I visited Chicago, we went to a couple of games at Wrigley Field to see the Padres play the Cubs. It is a great stadium, steeped with tons of history, other than it being 95 degrees on the day we spent in the left field bleachers. But I did end up with a ball, which was nice. Here is a video of Manny Machado hitting a home run. You could see me there. We are pretty stoked at this point in time. And then later in the game, here is Rizzo hitting a grand slam, erasing our lead. And you could see that we looked rather dejected. Even though my Padres lost both games we went to, it was still a really fun experience. So in regard to the wetland cypress, that's not how you spell aquarium, A-Q-U. I said Chicago is a great place to check out museums like the Field Museum, the Shedd Aquarium, the Alder Planetarium, and the Art Institute of Chicago. Now, I realize the aquarium isn't necessarily a museum, but it's still fun to check out. I could make an entire video talking about the Art Institute. It has an amazing collection. It has the Seurat, which is one of my favorite paintings. They have a number of pieces from Jasper Johns and Mondrian. And then there are paintings that most folks would recognize, like Hopper's Nighthawks and Grant Wood's American Gothic. A quick trivia about this painting. This is not an actual farmer and his wife. It was actually Wood's dentist, and standing next to him is the dentist's daughter. And then we have the blues. It railroaded a little bit when I was going fast. With this particular nib, if you go nice and slow, well, now it just decided to not keep up, but there, I just needed to give it a chance to catch up. But if you go nice and slow on this one, then you can see here the nice shading on this gray. And that this nib is really nice and flexible. You can start off with a narrow line and get rather thick there. And what I said was Chicago is a great place to get a hot dog. Now, in previous trips to Chicago, I've had some great hot dogs from street vendors, but on my last trip, we decided to try and seek out one of the best the city had to offer. We went to a place called Gene and Jude's, which was out in the suburbs on the way to Midway Airport, so it was rather convenient. The place showed up on a number of top 10s lists that I researched, so I thought the chance of it being good were pretty solid. We were right there when it opened, and there was already about a dozen people waiting outside, which is typically a good sign. I hate to say it, but the dogs weren't my favorite. You can see here they're served with fries, and I just thought that everything overall was a little bit on the bland side. Now, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of folks in the comments who say, hey, you should have gone to this place or that place, but this place was supposed to be one of the best, and it just disappointed me a little bit. Next time in town, I'll have to hunt down another one of the highly ranked places to see how that compares. So I said here that the flow is rather high. I find it to be a rather wet ink, and the drying time is generally, for extra fine and medium, between 15 and 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and do a water test. And while that's sitting here, let's take a look at some chromatography. I always find it interesting to see the color breakdown of inks, and this one is especially interesting. You can see that the shimmer stays at the bottom, but then it blends into some greens and purples and blues, and then even some turquoise there at the end, which surprised me a little bit. And then this is what it dried to. So you can see that the shimmer stayed down here at the bottom. What really surprised me was that little bit of turquoise at the top. That was just an interesting feature there and a nice little surprise. Okay, in regard to waterproofness, it didn't perform too bad. That they don't necessarily profess that this is going to be a waterproof ink, but it hung in there. What's happening now is more the paper dissolving more than the ink itself, so it held up just fine. The ink, the Cloudgate, is going to be available at the Chicago Pen Show, and the price is $15. If there is any extra after the show, it is going to be available the Monday after the show on the Papier Plume website. And typically some of their limited edition inks like this don't hang around for long. So if it's something that you're interested in, you want to take advantage of it sooner rather than later. So here we have Papier Plume Cloudgate. That I think lately Papier Plume's done a great job, and not just lately, over the last few years, of coming out with some nice themed inks for shows, and this is no exception. That it's a nice color and it performs well, and it's something a little bit different. For me personally, it's kind of an area of a color that I really don't have a lot of in my collection, and not just having the gray, but having it have some extensive shimmer in there adds a little bit to it as well. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.